Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast. I have on our show today the owner of Move Fitness for Her in Raleigh, Daryn Jankovic. Sorry.
It's all right.
And Daryn and I go way back. About 3 months ago, where we took a course together in Raleigh. It was John Russin's PPSC course, which is a good course. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot. But what was cool was that we got to connect. We found that we're both from New Jersey. And that was a great way to sort of talk about things. But I really liked what I saw with regards to your business. And I wanted to share with our audience different ways that they could actually access the level of care that you give as a trainer and as a coach so they can get to their fitness goals. So welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me today.
Can you tell us more about how Move Fitness started?
Started 10 years ago after both of my boys were born. And I wanted to work, but I couldn't have a 40-hour a week job.
Sure.
Because my husband worked full time.
Yeah.
So this allowed me to be with my kids and make my own hours. But there's a lot more that kind of led to that. I studied women's studies in college, and so I always wanted to either go into social work or help young women with body image and self-esteem, because this is something that I suffered with when I was younger. And then also prior to getting married, I started to work with a personal trainer for the first time. Before that, I was a cardio junkie. I was a long distance runner. And I felt like if you didn't get a sweat on, you weren't working hard enough. And I think that concept still...
Common fallacy, for sure. It's a myth.
Yes.
For anyone out there, if you're wondering, it is definitely a myth.
Yes. And so once a professional trained me with weights, and I could see my body changing. I love that. I also empowered me, because I would go from lifting on my own, say 10-pound weights, to he got me deadlifting at the time, my body weight. And that gave me so much confidence.
Yeah.
So then that leads me into starting my business, where if I felt this way lifting weights and it was that immediate
gratification
yes,
kind of thing.
Yes,
yeah,
thank
for sure.
You.
Yeah.
That I want other women to feel this way. So I decided to get certified. I took many courses in New York City,
Nice.
which was where I was living at the time. And I ended up working for my trainer back in New York City.
That's a cool story.
Yes. No, he was a great trainer, and I learned so much from him. Mm-hmm. He was a manager of a gym at the time.
Nice.
And so I was having to go from New Jersey to New York City to work.
Wow.
But again, I'm like, while my kids were in daycare, I'm like, this is just not working out.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to start my own business.
That's great.
And I just started to put my postcards around in apartment buildings in Jersey City. That's where I was living.
Clever.
And
Yes.
at the time, though, I trained both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it just evolved to just women. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to a house in the suburbs, and I had a gym there. And that's when I started to train only women.
What made that transition happen for you there, Daryn?
I started to take more courses for pre and postnatal and get really into like pelvic floor therapy and diastases. And I just really wanted to zoom in on one thing and really be a specialist for personal training. I know that probably cuts my business down to half or even a quarter, but I want to really own what I'm doing.
I like that. I mean, as they say in business, you can't help everybody. Mm-hmm. And for example, for us, we have a lot of lifelong athletes, everyday athletes, and runners are our two big niches. And to that point, I would say that the more niche and more specialized you become, the more people you can help in that specific category. So I think with women, and particularly pre and postnatal, there's definitely a need, and there's certainly not a lacking of there, because women are having babies and whatnot and having kids, and there's a lot of issues that we have women have as they get older too, where I think someone like you can come in and intervene with fitness.
Like I always say, postpartum is forever. So it doesn't matter if you
Good
had
point,
a
actually.
child,
Yeah.
a month ago or 20 years ago. Leaking when you sneeze or cough or running, it's normal, but what is it? It shouldn't be normal, but it's common.
Yes.
And there are ways that we can fix that through exercise and core strengthening and even breathing. So don't give up on yourself, ladies.
That's awesome. I want to go back in history for a second because you struck a chord with me because growing up in our culture, in the Korean culture, self-image is a lot. And so for me, I was the chunky Asian kid for most of my years. So a lot of emotional eating and whatnot. I mentioned this in other episodes. And as a result, it really gave me a poor image of myself over time until I started taking matters into my own hand in college and grad school, where I then got into the shape that I want to become. And since then, it's been a great journey of continuity over time. So I do empathize with you there. How did that self-image part sort of for you kind of, because you could go down two ways, right? You could definitely go down the downward spiral and become something, and you can go the other way and take action and live a life which you have taken.
Yeah.
How did you find the strength to go in that direction instead?
Well, I went down the other road first. Teens and 20s,
It's rough.
I just over-exercised and tried. I was never diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I had one, or I always tried to have one. I grew up in like the late 80s and 90s when, supermodels were it. And that's all I wanted to look like. Now, since it's the podcast, I will say I'm 5'2", so I'm never going to be 5'11" and look like that.
Me too. I'm still waiting for my growth spurt, actually.
I know, exactly. So it wasn't until I met my now husband, who was running a lot of marathons, that he got me into running. And from that, my eating just changed because I had to think about fueling my body for the runs. I also wasn't going out and drinking every night like a normal 20-year-old. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I was doing. Not all 20-year-olds do that. I just focused more on my health, and it just made me feel so much better.
Yeah.
And it just kind of evolved from there. So it took me probably 25 years, if not a few more, to realize like what the damage I was doing to myself.
Yeah.
And probably I'm a late bloomer as well. I feel like I didn't grow into myself until my 30s.
Yeah.
And that's when I started, Move Fitness.
That's awesome. So here's a question. What kind of advice do you think you'd want to give to somebody who might have gone through some of the struggles you did with your body image in your 20s or in your teens? And if they want to get onto that fitness journey safely without over-exercising and maybe even under-eating for some people?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, you're not alone. And even to this day, I speak with other women of all ages, and we all have something that we're not happy with. So speak to your friends, speak to your family, try to find support out there because you're not alone. And I say get active. Find something that you enjoy doing. It doesn't need to be lifting weights or running. It can be pickleball or tennis. But valuing what your body can do for you, strength-wise, I think will help you mentally. Like I go back to when I was able to deadlift a really heavy weight. That gave me so much confidence that day, and I felt like I could just conquer the world. It was that immediate impact.
Yeah. I love how you tied in, and I want to segue actually into mental health because I know for me, and maybe it is for you, Daryn, where because of my busy schedule as an entrepreneur and multi-practice owner and as a husband and father for my daughters, definitely I don't think I could have made it this far had it not been for fitness being such a big part of my mental sanity, if you will. And I think my wife and kids know that if I'm not working out, how cranky I can get.
Oh,
but so you probably the same way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Talk about that for yourself.
Oh, So I was actually thinking before coming here, like in every relationship, there's always a selfish one and a non-selfish one.
Yes.
And I'm the selfish one. But I have to. If I don't work out or even just go for a walk or just take time to myself, and that might just be watching a Netflix show, then I can't help others.
Can't be your
And
best.
there's nothing wrong with that. It's like on a plane. When you need to put the oxygen mask on, you need to put it on yourself first before helping your children. And I just know I'm a much better parent and partner when I do take time for myself.
That's awesome. I would say the same thing. And I would also say that the behaviors that you're exhibiting as a mom and as a wife probably translate over to your kids, where they're observing these behaviors. And as we all know, kids tend to pick up more of what they observe than what they hear from us. And for me, I think that is actually translated into, actually, for example, yesterday, the four of us went to the gym Sunday afternoon, and we're the only family there, which is kind of cool. My wife pointed out.
How old are your kids?
17 and 19.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they actually like me too still, which is great. And I think as a father and as a husband, I want to actually have that example for my daughters, knowing that it is a good thing to be exercising for mental and physical health. And it's a good thing to do as a family, because now we're all kind of growing together in that space.
I wish I could get my husband on board with that.
He'll come around.
Not that, it's not that he's not fit. It's just time.
Yeah.
But my two boys, which are 11 and almost 13, will work out in the gym together. And actually, my almost 13-year-old is getting quite buff and
Nice.
really focusing on his eating has changed.
That's great.
He's eating more protein.
Wow.
When we go out to dinner,
That's
he wants
great.
only water rather than like what we call special drink soda.
Yes.
And I have videos of us from when they were just toddlers
Yes.
working out together.
That's so cool. I love that.
I know. I should post a new one
Yeah.
with then and now.
That is awesome.
So
Cool. So tell me something. What about for your clients that you work with? What do you think some of the challenges, maybe one or two of their biggest challenges when they come to see you? Like, what state are they in? Are they like, hey, Daryn, I've tried everything and I'm just not getting the results I'm looking for? They might be frustrated, depressed, or even anxious about not getting back into shape. Talk to me about that.
most of them probably come for weight loss. And so in our initial meeting, I bring up trying to find a goal that has nothing to do with weight loss. Is there a movement or something that you've always wanted to do? Maybe you wanted to be able to run a 5K or to do a real push-up. If we can focus on that in our training, the weight loss is just like the cherry on top. And so a lot of them, they're busy working women and or moms. And I find that just with the lifestyle, especially in America, the sedentary lifestyle, they just come with a lot of like stiffness and mobility. And, we have to just kind of go back to the basics, build their foundation, their core, strengthen that, and then grow from there.
That's awesome. So it sounds like, do you kind of have a sort of methodology or approach that you take when you're building a program for a first-time client?
Yeah, well, I like to start out slow.
Yeah.
And I like to look at their entire life. And so that's why I always suggest meeting in person.
Yeah.
I offer a free assessment because they need to feel really comfortable with me as I do with them. Because I'm going to get to know them pretty intimately.
Absolutely.
I think before even exercise and diet, I look at their sleep quality, how much water they're drinking, their stress level. If those aren't somewhat balanced, then exercise and eating is just, it's going to be hard to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we make one small change every week or every couple of weeks. And as far as like fitness, I try to give them compound movements.
Yes.
And because I know they don't have a lot of time and my sessions are on the shorter side. And I really use the gym as a classroom. They're there to learn. I don't, the magic happens once they leave the gym. I mean, I wish I wish a 45-minute session with me could change their world.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would be a
As
billionaire.
good as you and I are, that's just not the reality of it.
No.
I love that you said that, and I was reading some stuff that you had sent me before about how you have an emphasis on education, and I think that as a physio and as people like yourself as coach or trainer, if we don't spend that time really dialing in, educating them on the things that have to change in their overall life that might be affecting their fitness and their general health to begin with, I think we'll miss the boat on how we can get them a long-term sustainable change because, everyone, maybe they'll see an ad or it's summertime, oh, I got to get back into, going to the beach and that kind of stuff. But they're unaware or they don't really emphasize the long game, which is what you and I are for our own lives. And that becomes a problem for them and being able to continue on that path towards optimizing their health.
I couldn't agree more. It's not just about looking good, but it's about feeling good and being able to still do what you're doing in your 30s or 40s when you're in your 80s. And so that's where modus vivendi comes, and the meaning is it's a way of life.
Yeah, it really is a way of life. It's funny, as I look at or reflect upon my own fitness journey, I was also really into triathlon for a long time, and it was an obsession almost. And yeah, I look good and I was fast and whatnot for my sport, and I really enjoyed it. But what I started noticing in my 40s was just got weak.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I can run, 19-minute 5K or whatever, but I couldn't lift like a 50-pound kettlebell. It was getting to that point. And so after hearing a couple of podcasts with, I don't know if you know Peter Attia, realizing that the more muscle you have in your 30s and 40s, the better off your lifespan is going to be in your quality of life in your 70s and 80s. And I was like, that really kind of stuck with me. And I was like, I got to really get back into the gym, just hardcore heavy weight. So the last year I took a full year off from triathlon. And I have to say, I'm really happy with how I feel physically, mentally, probably better than I had before when I was doing triathlon.
Yeah.
With training with and from your running, I was always tired. I was always friggin' hungry. And so, it really took a lot out of me. Whereas with strength training, I feel actually energized in a way that I didn't feel that with endurance training.
Yeah, it's definitely a good substitute. When you have a family and you don't have a lot of time, you cannot go out on 2-hour bike rides or runs.
Yeah.
But let's go back to 40s. We're both in our 40s.
Yes.
And how you said things have changed.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree more. And that's kind of what I'm struggling with now. I'm mid-40s. I'm not quite perimenopausal yet, but I'm noticing I can't do the same things I did even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And as women, this is hard. Our bodies change. But and so I've been really focusing on trying just to accept where I am and find new ways that are going to challenge me both physically and mentally. I can't run anymore. I haven't been able to run for about 7 years. I have osteoarthritis in my right hip to the point where now I'm considering getting a hip replacement.
Oh no. I'm no good physio.
Absolutely. So that's another thing I focus on with my clients, that you're not going to be able to do what you did when you were 20. You can, or maybe lift as heavy, but we can still do something and keep moving, never stop.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's actually the advice that we get to a lot of our clients too. And I see a lot of mirroring in actually how you approach your clients with ours. We were always talking about sleep, nutrition, all these things that can actually affect.
That's why we like each other.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's all these factors that can really affect the rehab process that, if you're eating poorly and you're always inflamed, I can do all the magical stuff I can with all of our stuff here. You're not going to get better.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to be inflamed. Whereas if you've got good sleep, that's a big part of the healing process. If you're watching what you eat, you're increasing your protein. We're always talking about protein and whatnot with our clients, because a lot of them under-consume and they think, oh, I'm probably taking enough. And then you do the calorie, sort of calculator, and you're only taking 30 grams a day, man. I don't know, what you're thinking. And, for them, it's surprising. It's oh, my God, I had no idea I was taking so little.
Yeah. Or for women, when I say you should have at least 20 grams per meal, they're like, what? 20 grams?
How many calories is that?
And I try to say, actually, protein has fewer calories per gram than carbs and fat.
Right.
But I just think, it seems like a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I find that once they're dialed into their nutrition, not only does the rehab go well, but then they're actually that much more motivated to do things and get into fitness, which is really a long-term goal for what we do. Our belief is that the physio is one part. We just want to get you to go back to what you love to do, and that's all we dial in on for our clients. But that's going to be involving not only what we do here, but also what you do in your lifestyle outside. That's going to give you the best bang for your buck.
So unlike the trainer where a physical therapist would send their clients to me after.
That's perfect.
Because we'll just, again, still work slow and not overdo it, or especially pelvic floor PTs. If you want to get back into strength training, then I will help you do that without going back to if you had a prolapse before, for example.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that because there aren't a lot of trainers who do that, and it's actually one of the first questions we ask our clients who come in is, "Hey, do you have any leakage issues?" Or in a discreet way, and they say, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do." It's like, well, it's what's great, Daryn, and now I have someone I can refer people to because these are women who want to keep in shape, but they do have these issues, and it's not dealt with, I don't think, in a way that's helpful for them for the long term. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, and thank you for asking them.
Yes.
It's been not a taboo, but it hasn't been talked about until I would say recent. And I don't know if it's just because that's what I'm researching, so it's in my world, or is it really becoming more known in the fitness industry, which I hope.
Yeah. Exactly. And, the other thing is we always talk about women's health, which is awesome. Men are maybe worse. This is why we die early. But we asked this to men, too, and they're like, well, it's funny you mentioned that because I just thought it was what happens to guys over 50. I was like, this is not, like you said, common, not normal. And there are ways to deal with this. And they're kind of like, scratching their heads like, I never knew. So then we go in the conversation there about how a couple of things you can do to and who to see if that's a problem for you.
Men have pelvic floors as well.
It's amazing that we do. Yes, it's not just the ladies things, guys out there.
We're getting pretty intimate in our conversation here, but we have to bring this up.
Have to. Definitely.
If no one, who else will?
So, quick question. You and I are very busy. What are some key ways, or is there sort of a blueprint that you have for designing a short program for somebody who's got very little time, Daryn?
Well, one, you don't need to be in the gym for 60 minutes. And your exercise doesn't have to be done all at the same time. Yeah. You can break it up throughout the day. And so that's another thing. I'll look at someone's schedule and be like, oh, your daughter has ballet during this time, or your son has soccer. Well, that's the perfect time to work out. As long as, you can leave them with the coach and be safe. It's a perfect time to go for a walk or throw a pair of dumbbells or bands in your car and just...
Same thing. It's funny you mentioned that.
And find a spot in the parking lot. And if people are looking at you, it's because they're thinking, I need to be doing that.
And it's inspiration, maybe.
Yes.
I thought about, and I never got to it because I was doing stuff with business, but when I did do the workouts, actually when my girls played travel volleyball back in the day, and so I would get a bunch of dads, because we're all on the trip together. Hey, let's just go to the gym. We just do a workout together. It was a lot of fun, and they got inspired to continue on that path after, which is really kind of cool too.
My boys play soccer. And so I'm going to start a soccer mom fitness at WRAL maybe in the fall.
I like that.
We'll just find a quiet place.
Yeah.
And just because otherwise you're just standing around talking, and there's nothing wrong with that. But why don't we can use our time. We can talk and work out at the same time.
I love that. That's a very creative way to use that time instead of just kind of vegging out or talking, like you said, to be able to incorporate something physical. I think the moms and dads out there might feel empowered to take their fitness on or their own health on, or take it more seriously for that matter.
Yeah, I've been known to work out while I was getting my car oil changed.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
It's a little creepy, but
that's next level. I have to say, I haven't thought about that, but that's a good thing. So quickly, as far as how people can get in touch with you, Daryn, to learn more about Move Fitness for her, what are some ways that they can get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Well, please visit my website, and that is mvmove.com. There's a phone number on there. Feel free to call me, email me. They can contact you at Next Level. You can give them my phone number.
Happy to.
I'm also on Instagram, Move Fitness Raleigh, and I'll post 10-minute workouts, 2 moves that you can just do, back to back when you're short on time, but yet they're effective. You're getting your heart rate up and you're strengthening your muscles at the same time. Like a little goes a long way.
Absolutely. And for anyone who might be suffering from a pelvic floor issue, and maybe you're somebody who's active but are maybe embarrassed about feeling the leak, if you will, when you work out, at least there is a solution in the nearby area if you happen to be near Cary, Apex, or Raleigh, if you want to continue on the fitness journey, but maybe getting a little specialized attention to address those issues first so that you go back to your favorite activities might be the next step for you. So I'm so glad, Daryn, that we got to get you on the show to share that with our audience in the Triangle area. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can work together in the future for any kinds of things regarding fitness and other kinds of programs.
Thank you. Look forward to that as well.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least 1 or 2 helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.